Hello, I'm George R.R. Martin, and here's everything you need to know to enjoy Season 5 of Game of Thrones. Well, most of what you need to know. Some of what you need to know. It's long. I wrote a lot. The action of Game of Thrones is set on two fictional continents, Westeros in the west and Essos in the east. See what I did there? The continent of Westeros is the primary setting and is home to the so-called Seven Kingdoms. The North, the Mountain and the Vale, the Isles and Rivers, the Rock, the Stormlands, the Reach, and Dorne. There's also a great wall separating the kingdoms from the wildlings that live in the icy north. Essos is a large continent to the east that's home to 9 powerful city-states known collectively as the Free Cities. So following all the action and intrigue of Game of Thrones is going to require you to know a little bit about the noble families of Westeros, each of which has a castle, a little chunk of land, and their own sigil, usually animal-themed. Here's some of the main families you'll need to know about. House Baratheon of Storm's End, represented by a stag. At the start of Game of Thrones, King Robert Baratheon controls King's Landing and rules all 7 kingdoms of Westeros. House Targaryen of Valerian, represented by a 3-headed dragon. They ruled Westeros for 300 years until being overthrown by King Robert. House Lannister of Casterly Rock, represented by a golden lion. One of the wealthiest houses in Westeros, they moved to King's Landing following Cersei Lannister's marriage to Robert Baratheon and the birth of her son, Joffrey. House Martell of Sunspear in the southern land of Dorne. They are represented by a golden spear piercing the sun, so it's not just a clever name. House Greyjoy of Pike, represented by a kraken. They rule over the harsh, forbidding Iron Islands. House Arryn of the Eyrie in what's known as the Vale. They are represented by a falcon. House Bolton of the Dreadfort, one of the most powerful families of the North. They're represented by a flayed man. Yes, they saw this picture of a flayed man and said, that image best represents us as a family. House Tyrell of Highgarden, another of the most wealthy houses of the 7 kingdoms. They are represented by a golden rose. So before the main action kicks off, here's a quick Westeros history lesson. And by quick, I mean 2 hours. 8,000 years ago, there was a winter that lasted an entire generation, known as the Long Night. From the far north, creatures known as the White Walkers descended on Westeros, killing everything in their path. The wall was constructed in the aftermath of the Battle for the Dawn, when the heroes of the Night's Watch pushed the Walkers back to the north. 300 years before the start of Game of Thrones, the series, Aegon the Conqueror of the Targaryen house united 6 of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros under his banner. His dynasty would last until about 20 years ago, when several houses, including Stark, Baratheon, and Arryn, joined forces to overthrow the maniacal Aerys II Targaryen, known as the Mad King. The Lannisters eventually joined the rebellion as well, and Jaime Lannister killed King Aerys, earning the title Kingslayer. Robert Baratheon became king of the 7 kingdoms and married Jaime's sister, Cersei Lannister, while Ned Stark returned home to his family at Winterfell, bringing along his bastard son, Jon Snow. Aerys' 2 youngest children, Prince Viserys and Princess Daenerys, were spirited away to safety in Essos. Meanwhile, post-rebellion, the Greyjoy family rose up and Balon Greyjoy declared himself king of the Iron Islands. King Robert put down the rebellion and assigned Balon's only surviving son, Theon Greyjoy, to become a ward of the Stark family. All right, now you're all caught up for Season 1. As Game of Thrones begins, King Robert Baratheon, his wife Cersei Lannister, her brother Jaime Lannister, and his son Joffrey Baratheon travel north to visit the Stark family at their castle, Winterfell. King Robert wants to make his old friend Ned Stark his new chief advisor.
I would name you the Hand of the King.
The former Hand of the King, Jon Arryn, died under mysterious circumstances. Ned's 10-year-old son Brandon, known as Bran, accidentally catches Jaime and Cersei Lannister doing it, despite being brother and sister. So Jaime shoves him out an open window.
The things I do for love.
After Prince Joffrey picks a fight with young Arya Stark and her friend, he's attacked by one of the family's pet direwolves, sparking a fresh conflict between the Lannisters and Starks and introducing us for the first time to the recurring theme that Joffrey is kind of a total dick.
Stay here. I'll go back to the inn and bring help.
Then go! Don't touch me.
Jon Snow, Ned's bastard son, heads north with the intention of joining the Night's Watch, the brotherhood that gives up their lives, even taking a vow of celibacy to protect Westeros and guard the Wall. He's joined by Tyrion Lannister, the dwarf brother of Cersei and Jaime. Ned's daughter Sansa joins him in King's Landing as the attended future wife of Prince Joffrey. Arya comes along too and gets fencing lessons from Syrio Forel from Braavos. Meanwhile, across the Narrow Sea in the east, the surviving Targaryen siblings forge a deal with a tribe of horse lords known as the Dothraki. Daenerys will marry their lord, Khal Drogo, and then they will use Drogo's army to cross the ocean and reclaim the throne of Westeros for their family. She also eats a horse heart and stands by as her scheming brother is executed.
Crown for king.
So things are going overall pretty well in Essos.
He was no dragon.
Fire cannot kill a dragon.
In King's Landing, Ned Stark begins investigating just what happened to Jon Arryn and discovers that his predecessor had learned about King Robert's bastard children. Ned makes a shocking realization. Joffrey Baratheon is really the product of the incestuous relationship between Cersei and Jaime Lannister and is thus not King Robert's real son.
The lion's not his sigil, idiot. He's a stag like his father.
He is not. He's nothing like that old drunk king.
That would mean Robert's brother, Stannis Baratheon, should be sitting on the Iron Throne. When King Robert is mortally wounded during a wild boar hunt, Ned asks fellow member of the King's Council, Peter Baelish, known as Littlefinger, to help him win over the soldiers of the City Watch. He needs their help to remove the Lannisters from power and give the crown over to Stannis Baratheon. But Littlefinger betrays him, staying loyal to the Lannisters, and Ned is arrested.
I did warn you not to trust me.
Arya Stark is saved by the brave Syrio and manages to escape the Lannisters in King's Landing, posing as a new male Night's Watch recruit. Back in Winterfell, Ned's eldest son, Robb Stark, prepares to go to war with King's Landing to save his father. Ned, hoping to spare the rest of his family, confesses to conspiracy against the king and swears fealty to Joffrey as the rightful heir to the throne. But then the writers remembered he's being played by Sean Bean, so Joffrey has him executed. As Season 1 ends, we see some of the repercussions of Ned's death. The North secedes from the Seven Kingdoms, proclaiming Robb Stark as their new king. Tyrion Lannister becomes the new Hand of the King for his brother Joffrey by order of the real head of the family, his father Tywin Lannister. Khal Drogo is mortally wounded in battle and dies. Daenerys, overcome with grief, tries to kill herself in the funeral pyre alongside her family's treasured 3 preserved dragon eggs. However, she rises unharmed from the ashes alongside 3 newborn baby dragons. Let's move on to Season 2. We finally meet the dead King Robert's brother, Stannis Baratheon, who declares himself the rightful heir to the Iron Throne and sends out a letter revealing Joffrey's true heritage. He's living on the island of Dragonstone and is advised by the devoted Sir Davos Seaworth, as well as the Red Priestess Melisandre, who has converted Stannis to worshipping her god, the Lord of Light. Robb Stark sends Theon Greyjoy home to the Iron Islands to convince his father Baelon to join the fight for northern independence. But Baelon wants to take the north for the Greyjoy family instead. In King's Landing, while celebrating Joffrey's name day, Sansa saves the life of drunkard Ser Dantos. Tyrion arrives to take up his new post as Hand of the King, along with his mistress Shae, whom Tyrion's father Tywin instructed him to leave behind. Oh, also, the City Watch murders all of dead King Robert's bastard children, except one named Gendry, who escapes the city and joins Arya Stark and the group of Night Watch recruits headed for the Wall. Meanwhile, beyond the Wall, Jon Snow and Samwell venture to Craster's Keep, where the cruel master of the house sacrifices his sons to the White Walkers, gross, and marries his own daughters, double gross! Catelyn Stark, hoping to forge an alliance, arrives at Renly Baratheon's camp. He's celebrating his recent marriage to Margaery Tyrell, an alliance with the Tyrell family of Highgarden. As part of the festivities, the brave Brienne of Tarth wins a fight against Sir Loras Tyrell, Margaery's brother, and requests a place in Renly's Kingsguard, which she receives. Then Stannis orders Sir Davos to take Melisandre to a secluded cave so she can give birth to a mysterious smoke monster, and we in the audience secretly hope for a Lost crossover, but it doesn't happen.
No one must know what you do, and will not speak of this again.
I am truly abased.
Meanwhile, the caravan in which Arya and Gendry are traveling is attacked by Lannister bannermen, but the kids survive and Arya protects Gendry's identity as Robert Baratheon's bastard son. Plus, she helps free a mysterious caged prisoner known as Jaqen. Arya and Gendry, and yes, Hot Pie, are captured and taken to the ruined castle of Harrenhal.
What's that smell?
Dead people.
It's currently under the control of Tywin Lannister. He recognizes that Arya is a girl, but doesn't recognize her as a Stark, and appoints her his personal cupbearer.
Not wine, water. We'll be here for some time.
While in Harrenhal, she meets back up with Jaqen. He thanks her by offering to kill 3 people on her behalf.
A man pays his debts. A man owes 3.
Yeah, he always talks like that. She first selects the notorious Harrenhal interrogator, the Tickler, who soon enough turns up with a broken neck. In Essos, Daenerys seeks refuge in the wealthy desert city of Qarth. Qarth. While she's there, her dragons get stolen. Back in Renly Baratheon's camp, Brienne and Catelyn are just in time to see the newborn smoke monster show up and fatally stab Renly before vanishing. Brienne becomes the prime suspect, but Catelyn helps her to escape. Brienne swears her allegiance to Lady Stark, and together they correctly surmise that somehow Stannis Baratheon was behind the assassination. The Greyjoys' attack on the Starks' home is successful, and Theon appoints himself Lord of Winterfell. He's seduced by the Starks' wildling servant, Osha, allowing Bran, his brother Rickon, and the friendly giant Hodor to escape. Oh, Hodor can only say one word.
Hodor.
You mean you sweet giant?
Hodor.
Now you get all those internet jokes. Once the men discover Theon has allowed the Stark boys to escape, he shows off 2 charred corpses that he claims are them. Meanwhile, Robb Stark is following hard for a field nurse known as Talisa, even though he's already been promised to one of the daughters of Lord Walder Frey in exchange for his allowing the Stark armies to pass by his castles in the Riverlands, known as the Twins. Hearing of the Greyjoy assault on Winterfell, Robb wants to return and save his home, but Lord Roose Bolton suggests sending his bastard son, Ramsay Snow, back instead, so Robb can continue his assault on the Lannisters.
Let me send word to my bastard at the Dreadfort. He can raise a few hundred men and retake Winterfell before the new moon.
North of the Wall, Jon Snow has joined an expedition to take down a wildling watchpost. He captures a single female prisoner, Ygritte, who he can't bring himself to execute. She lets him know that he knows nothing. A few times.
You know nothing, Jon Snow. You know nothing, Jon Snow. You know nothing, Jon Snow. You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Then she tricks him into being captured by the Wildling army. Along with another captured member of the Night's Watch, they conspire to make it look like Jon has actually defected and joined the Wildlings. At a desolate outpost called Fist of the First Men, Sam stumbles into an ancient cloak and powerful dragon glass weapons. Back in Harrenhal, Arya is nearly revealed by Sir Amory Lorch, but gets Jaqen to take him out before anyone else learns her secret. She also tries to get Jaqen to take out Tywin Lannister, but he's already left the castle to plan an attack on Robb Stark's army, so Arya just manipulates him into helping her escape. Back at King Robb of the North's camp, Catelyn Stark sets Jaime Lannister free and asks Brienne to spirit him to King's Landing in exchange for Arya and Sansa. Finally, Stannis' fleet arrives at King's Landing, setting off the Battle of the Blackwater. He gets little help from a terrified and retreating King Joffrey. At the 0 hour, he receives much-needed backup from Tywin Lannister's forces, but sustains a painful-looking slash across the face that will leave him permanently scarred. Post-battle, Joffrey celebrates his grandfather's heroism and awards him the title Hand of the King, but ignores Tyrion's contributions. To cement the union of houses Tyrell and Lannister, Joffrey's engagement to Sansa is cancelled and he's re-promised to Margaery Tyrell, the widow of Renly Baratheon. Also, Robb marries Talisa in secret. Theon is captured by Bolton's men as Winterfell burns, Daenerys gets her dragons back, and the Wildlings accept Jon Snow into their company. The season ends with Sam having a first terrifying encounter with the White Walkers. That was it. But I spent a lot of time on these, you guys. Well, all right, let's move on to season 3. Jon Snow arrives back at the Wildling camp and meets their leader, Mance Rayder, known as the King Beyond the Wall. Back at King's Landing, Tyrion confronts his father, asking for some share of the credit in the victory at Blackwater Bay, but receives only insults and abuse. Melisandre warns Stannis that her magical powers will diminish without a fresh supply of King's blood, which they can get from other members of his extended family. Robb Stark arrives at Harrenhal but finds it abandoned. Gregor Clegane, the freakishly large warrior known as the Mountain, has slaughtered all the prisoners on behalf of Tywin Lannister. Daenerys Targaryen, meanwhile, arrives in the city of Astapor, where she survives an assassination attempt. She's offered a chance to purchase the town's infamous castrated slave soldiers, known as the Unsullied. She agrees to exchange one of her 3 dragons for the army, but after taking ownership of the Unsullied, she orders them all to kill their masters along with all the other slavers in Astapor. During his travels to the Wall, Bran and his company encounter Jojen Reed, a seer, and his sister Mira. It turns out Jojen and Bran have the same dream about a 3-eyed raven. Jojen believes it means they must travel north of the Wall. Arya Stark and her friends are taken prisoner by the mercenary group Brotherhood Without Banners. When the group stops at an inn, Arya is recognized by the Hound, aka Sandor Clegane, the disfigured brother of the Mountain.
What in 7 hells are you doing with the Stark bitch?
Oh, and she leaves behind her pal Hot Pie, who stays with the innkeepers. This'll be important later. Meanwhile, Brienne and Jaime Lannister are stopped on the road to King's Landing and taken captive by Locke, a bannerman for Roose Bolton who plans to take them to Harrenhal. After Jaime attempts to bribe Locke with promises of Lannister gold, his sneering abductor chops off his right hand. I did not see that coming, even though I wrote it. Sam and some fellow members of the Night's Watch return to Craster's Keep, but after a scuffle, Craster himself ends up dead, and the remaining Watchmen decide to shirk their duties and stay behind. Sam flees along with his new friend Gilly and the son to whom she has just given birth. Jon, Ygritte, and other wildlings have been sent on a dangerous mission to scale the wall. During the journey, Ygritte and Jon sneak away and have sex in violation of his Night's Watch vows. Back at King's Landing, Lady Olenna Tyrell devises a plot to marry her grandson Sir Loras to Sansa Stark. Tywin Lannister proposes an alternate plan. Tyrion will marry Sansa. Seems straightforward enough, and Cersei will marry Sir Loras, against her will.
You're still fertile, you need to marry again and breed.
I am Queen Regent, not some brood mare.
You're my daughter!
You will do as I command, and you will marry Loras Tyrell.
Melisandre meets up with the Brotherhood and takes away Gendry, revealing to him for the first time that he is Robert Baratheon's son. Meanwhile, Jon and Ygritte do manage to scale the wall successfully, and the still captive Theon is brutally tortured by Ramsay Snow, who has him castrated.
What? Yeah. Pork sausage.
Robb works out a deal with Walder Frey. Frey will contribute men and safe passage to the Stark's army, and in exchange, Robb's cousin Edmure Tully will marry Frey's daughter, Rosalind. As the Tullys and Starks journey to the twins for the wedding, Talisa reveals to Robb that she is pregnant. Arya, furious at the loss of Gendry, escapes the Brotherhood, but she's soon found and taken captive yet again, this time by the Hound, who wants to take her to the twins and ransom her back to her family.
Kick all you like, Wolfgar. Won't do you no good.
At Harrenhal, Brienne is thrown into a pit with a bear and only a wooden sword to protect her. The Red Priestess then uses leeches to draw some of Gendry's precious royal blood. In the far north, beyond the wall, Sam and Gilly encounter a White Walker, but Sam manages to take it out using the dragonglass spear tip he found. Unfortunately, he runs off without the valuable weapon, leaving it in the snow. While hiding from a group of wildlings, including Jon Snow, Bran discovers that he not only has the ability to mentally control animals, but he can also take command of the mind of Hodor. These are known as warg powers. At the twins, Walder Frey officially accepts Robb Stark's apology for going back on their deal, and they celebrate the wedding of Edmure and Rosalind together. Once the couple is left for the bedding ceremony, however, it is revealed that Frey has betrayed the Starks.
I've given you meat and wine and music, but I haven't shown you the hospitality you deserve. My king has married, and I owe my new queen a wedding gift.
His men repeatedly stab Talisa and her baby, shoot Robb with crossbows, and take out all of their bannermen. Finally, Roose Bolton, who is in on the conspiracy, kills Robb with a knife to the heart, and Frey's son Black Walder slits Catelyn's throat. Oh, interesting development that I wrote. Arya Stark, who has just arrived at the castle to witness her family's betrayal firsthand, is saved at the last second by the Hound. Jon has almost escaped the wildlings, but is discovered by Ygritte, who shoots him with 3 arrows, but he still gets away. Meanwhile, Ramsay Snow renames Theon Reek and sends Reek's severed penis to his father as a taunt. It's his dick in a box! At Dragonstone, Davos discovers that Stannis and Melisandre plan to burn Gendry as a sacrifice to the Lord of Light, so Davos frees him and gives him a boat to aid his escape. The season ends in Essos with Daenerys using her unsullied army to free the 200,000 slaves being held in the free city of Yunkai. And finally, it's time for Season 4. Season 4 kicks off at King's Landing, where Tywin Lannister is melting down the Stark family's ancestral sword Ice, turning it into 2 new swords, one for Jaime and one for Joffrey. Prince Oberyn Martell, known as the Red Viper, arrives from the southern region of Dorne. He's looking to avenge his sister Elia and her 2 children who were killed during the Baratheon Lannister coup. He's especially out for revenge against the Mountain, who he believes raped his sister during the siege on King's Landing.
They butchered those children. My nephew and niece. Carved them up and wrapped them in Lannister cloaks.
Some of the wildlings unite with a group of cannibal free folk from the north known as the Thenns, and together they begin raiding small villages in the north. Ramsay Snow has fully trained his new servant Reek, who proves his trustworthiness by carefully shaving his master's face. Roose Bolton wants to cement his position as ruler of the North, in part by tracking down and killing all of the living Stark men, Bran, Rickon, and Jon Snow. Roose promises to make his bastard son a legitimate Bolton if they are successful, and sends Locke to the wall after Jon Snow. Tyrion gets a warning from the king's spymaster, Lord Varys. It seems Cersei has learned of Tyrion's mistress Shae and plans to tell Lord Tywin about her as well. Together, Tyrion and Varys conspire to get her out of King's Landing to safety in Essos, with Tyrion going so far as to claim he never really loved her. Then it's time for the wedding of Joffrey and Margaery Tyrell, featuring a recreation of the recent War of the Five Kings, starring an all-dwarf cast. This upsets a number of the attendees, including Tyrion, who expresses his discontent openly to his nephew.
One taste of combat was enough for me, Your Grace. I would like to keep what remains of my face. I think you should fight him. This was but a poor imitation of your own bravery on the field of battle.
Margaery distracts everyone from fighting with the massive wedding pie, which Joffrey begins to eat, causing him to choke, and then mysteriously drop dead. At the last moment, Sansa is spirited away by Dantos, the drunk whose life she saved, who now works as the king's fool. He gets her to a large ship where Littlefinger has been waiting for her. Tyrion, who as the king's cupbearer could easily have poisoned his goblet, is arrested for regicide. Meanwhile, the Tyrells fret that because the marriage was never consummated, Margaery is not actually queen. It seems she'll have to marry Tommen Baratheon, Joffrey's younger brother and the next in line for the throne, to finally gain the seat of power.
If we're going to be man and wife, we'll have a few secrets from her, I hope.
Whoa, she's good. Later, Jaime, on Tyrion's behalf, asks Brienne to find and protect Sansa. He gives her the new sword he received from Tywin, which she names Oathkeeper. Sansa, meanwhile, arrives at the home of her aunt and Littlefinger's future wife, Lysa Arryn. Bran and his friends are captured by the Night's Watch mutineers holed up at Craster's Keep. The men then put the last of Craster's living sons outside as a sacrifice to the White Walkers, who turn the baby into one of their own by touching him. Jon Snow volunteers for a mission to take out these mutineers. He's joined by a new recruit, an undercover lock. When they arrive at Craster's Keep, a fight ensues. The brothers of the Night's Watch burn Craster's Keep and all the bodies that remain there. Across the Narrow Sea, Daenerys and her army reach Meereen and kick off a slave uprising. Everything turns out better than expected. Tommen is crowned king, and plans begin immediately for his marriage to Margaery Tyrell, as well as the marriage of Cersei and Sir Loras. Then it's time for Tyrion's trial to begin. Things do not go well for Tyrion, with all of the witness testimony seeming to confirm his guilt. Jaime makes a deal for his brother's life. He'll return to Casterly Rock and serve as Tywin's heir if Tyrion is allowed to join the Night's Watch rather than being executed. But it's all for naught. Shae lies on the stand telling everyone that Tyrion and Sansa planned Joffrey's murder together as vengeance for the deaths of Ned, Catelyn, and Robb Stark. This causes an outburst from Tyrion. He denies killing Joffrey but says he wishes he had, and accuses his father of putting him on trial for being a dwarf.
I saved you. I saved this city. All your worthless lives. I demand a trial by combat.
The Lannisters will be represented by Gregor Clegane the Mountain. Tyrion asks Jaime to be his champion, but Jaime refuses because of the loss of his hand. Bronn also refuses after being bribed by Cersei. Oberyn Martell, however, steps in, agreeing to fight on Tyrion's behalf because it will finally allow him to confront and kill his longtime adversary.
I will be your champion.
Brienne and her squire Podrick, also on the road to find Sansa Stark, run into Hot Pie at the end. Remember him? He tells them he saw Arya Stark alive and the Brotherhood had plans to ransom her off. They conclude she must be on her way to her last surviving relative, Lysa Arryn, so the two make way for the Vale, where we find Sansa and Littlefinger sharing a heart-to-heart. He reveals that he wanted to kill Joffrey as vengeance for the death of Catelyn Stark, whom he always loved. When the jealous Lysa Arryn sees them together, she threatens to send Sansa plummeting from the moon door to her death. Littlefinger convinces her to let Sansa go.
I have only loved one woman. Your sister.
Boy, the bottom really fell out of that plan. It's George R.R. Martin humor, don't worry about it. Gilly's hideout in Molestown is raided by wildlings, including Ygritte, who lets her live after seeing her baby. Littlefinger is suspected in Lysa's death, which he claims was a suicide, but Sansa corroborates his story. Arya and the Hound arrive at the castle, but are informed of Lady Arryn's death. Arya takes the news just as hard as you'd expect. In King's Landing, the trial by combat begins. The wily, fast-moving Oberyn seems to have it in the bag and presses the Mountain to confess to raping and killing his sister at Tywin Lannister's command. Unfortunately, this gives the Mountain time to knock the so-called Red Viper to the ground, gouge his eyes out, and crush his skull. Ugh! Let's, of course, see that again. After the fight is lost, Tywin sentences Tyrion to death.
Tyrion Lannister, in the name of King Tommen of the House Baratheon, first of his name, you're hereby sentenced to death.
Mance Rayder and his army's assault on the Wall begins, featuring not just a ton of angry wildlings, but also the Thenn, giants, and woolly mammoths. Ygritte, who had been determined to kill Jon Snow herself, gets the drop on him, but can't bring herself to go through with it. As she hesitates, young Ollie shoots her in the back, killing her. The brave Night's Watch are somehow able to hold off the invaders, though they suffer heavy casualties. Jon leaves Sam to burn the bodies while he runs off to kill Mance Rayder himself. But before he gets a chance, Stannis Baratheon's army arrives, overpowering the wildling encampment and taking Mance prisoner. Daenerys loses track of Drogon, one of her dragons, and learns he has killed a little Meereen girl. In response, she chains the other 2 dragons away in the city's catacombs. North of the wall, Bran and his companions find a large tree that Jojen saw in a vision. They are attacked by snow skeletons known as wights, and Jojen is killed. But Bran, Hodor, and Mira are saved by one of the supernatural children. They're taken to a cave under a tree and meet a strange man who tells Bran,
"You'll never walk again. But you will fly."
Brienne and Podrick meet up with Arya and the Hound. Brienne and the Hound duke it out over who will take control of the girl, but Arya gets away during the fighting. The Hound is badly wounded and begs Arya to kill him, but she just takes his money and leaves him to die. She then gains passage on a ship bound for Braavos. In King's Landing, we find that the Mountain is not dead, but was poisoned by Oberyn Martell's spear. Cersei argues that he must be kept alive, even if the procedure may, quote-unquote, change him.
You should know. The process may change him. Somewhat.
Jaime Lannister frees her brother from the dungeon, but rather than leaving the city, Tyrion finds Shae in his father's bed and strangles her. He then finds his father and kills him with a crossbow. Finally, he sneaks onto a ship bound for Essos with Lord Varys to make his escape. And that's it. You're all set to enjoy Season 5. Was it just me, or was there a lot of incest in there? What is my thing with that? Did not even notice it when I was doing it. But now you're all set to keep watching Game of Thrones. Enjoy Season 5.